Here's my beloved Canon 1D. I've wanted to own this camera again for years, and finally found one in great condition that I could afford a few months back. Apart from paid gigs, it's what I shoot with most often these days. The fun of owning this camera, again, has not worn off. But during the time when I had yet to find one in good condition that I could afford, I bought this 1D Mark II instead. They are super affordable. Currently, as I record this, they have spiked in price a little bit, but not too bad. They're still pretty affordable. Just a bit less so, as compared to when I bought this one. So this is the format I decided on to compare the images between the two cameras. Hopefully it's useful to somebody. I'm performing the test, but I'll let you be the judge, ultimately, because I have great affection for both of these cameras. But I have neither the cash nor the space to grow a big camera collection right now. It's really as simple as this. The 1D Mark II is the better camera, but the 1D is the more special camera to me personally, as well as just in general, historically. Of course it is. It's the first. The Mark II is the second, or third, depending on how you look at it. I've logged a lot of hours with both cameras, from back when they were current models. I spent much more time overall with the 1D, but much more time recently with the Mark II. At the time the Mark II launched, 2004, it seemed like a huge upgrade over the original 1D from 2001. But with eyes very much influenced by decades of digital camera advancement, I now see them as pretty similar cameras. They're one generation apart, only, and it shows. I don't mean that in a negative way. If anything, the opposite. I have nothing negative to say. There are no cameras in the Milky Way galaxy that I have more love for than the 1D series, especially the early 1D series. What I mean is, I really went out of my way to track down an original 1D, despite already owning the Mark II, and I really needn't have. I mean, I don't regret it. I'm so glad I own the 1D now. But if I were a more reasonable person, less nostalgia-driven, the 1D Mark II definitely would have and should have sufficed. But now that I own the original 1D, I have no intention of ever parting with it. I mean, maybe. It's complicated. Thus, this isn't a comparison to see which one I keep and which one I sell. Yeah, I need the money. I have to sell one. It's going to be the Mark II. I already knew that the moment I purchased the Mark I. It's sad, but the Mark II's gotta go. That's the price of buying another camera. The last one's gotta go to pay for or help pay for the next one. If this comparison is helpful to someone to decide which to buy, which to keep, maybe they have one and they're curious about the other, I'm so glad. That isn't what it's about to me. It's just something I've wanted to do for a while. I want to do it while I still can. It's also a way to say goodbye to the Mark II. It's 4.1 million pixels versus 8.2 million pixels. Seemed like a huge difference in 2004. But without zooming in, because obviously that will reveal which is which, they look exactly the same resolution to me, coming from a contemporary perspective and working on a modern screen. They're both lower res than the 4K video file they're being shown against, for example, though the Mark II gets really, really close to 4K. The original 1D is well beyond the resolution of 1080 video though, so that's cool. I care about resolution so little, personally. I don't know if that's weird. It's weird to me, actually, because previously I cared a lot. And it's not true that I 100% don't care. If I'm spending thousands on a new camera, resolution is going to weigh heavily on my decision. But if I'm spending hundreds or less, US, on a very old digital camera, it basically matters to me not at all. These are all JPEG straight out of camera. No color editing of any kind has occurred. But interestingly, I discovered that the 1D Mark II shoots just a bit darker with identical settings. So in my video editing program, I bumped the brightness of some of the Mark II JPEGs up just a tiny bit. to better match the 1D, because before I did that it was a little bit distracting, that tiny exposure difference. And I'll get back to comparing the two cameras in a few minutes, but this particular morning I just wanted to spend a little time with my Mark II. But then I ran into a problem, which I handle beautifully with my typical level of zero patience and grace. It's a personality flaw. I am a grumpy individual.
The fuck was that?
I'm thinking, of course, now that I'm going to sell the camera stops working.
The fuck?
The shutter is making a weird noise, and I'm getting an error, but it is capturing an image, so don't know what's going on. This, by the way, is why weddings stress me out so much, and why one should never accept money to photograph someone's wedding, and only bring one camera.
God damn it.
It's just not fair. You're rolling the dice. Eventually something like this is going to happen to you.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Has it happened to me? Yeah, numerous times. You've got to have a backup for everything. But it needn't be that financially burdensome. Buy old. Buy used.
God damn it. The fuck is that noise? Remove and reload the battery. I did that. Maybe I need a new battery. Alright.
This would be a great backup camera. It would be a great primary camera, for that matter. But I'm not telling you that I think you should buy it. It's just an option. But there are many good options. I have both the 1D and the 1D Mark II set to the standard picture style, with white balance set to shade. The Mark II does a great job in auto white balance. The 1D, not so great. It's pretty inconsistent in auto. But with shade, the shade white balance setting, it looks fantastic in basically all conditions, sunny or otherwise, outdoors. Not so much with indoor artificial light situations. I had forgotten that. Back in the early 2000s, I also left white balance set to shade. So when I bought it again recently, the original 1D, I was puzzled by the colors I was getting there for a while. Tried shade again. That solved the problem. Great. It was only later that I remembered that that's exactly how I used to shoot it, pretty much all the time. And for the same reason. Also interesting, the 1D has a max shutter speed of 1/16,000th of a second. The 1D Mark II 1/8,000th of a second. Advantage 1D, right? That's how I remembered it these past few decades. But not really, because base ISO on the Mark II is 100 and it's 200 on the Mark I. Thus, at maximum shutter speed and base ISO on both cameras, that's exactly the same exposure. So as to not have to constantly do calculations in my head, for the duration of this video, I never dipped below ISO 200 on the Mark II, although I could have. And I never went beyond 1/8,000th of a second on the Mark I, although I could have. One sad reality is that the older a camera model gets, the harder it is to find one that still works well. It took me 4 1D Mark II purchases to get a keeper finally. I returned the first 3. One had a broken button. One had some kind of issue, I'm assuming with the sensor, where every shot was kind of hazy, plus kind of missed focus. The third... I didn't return the third. I had to cancel the order. Something came up, I had to leave town suddenly, and it would have just been sitting by the door for days, waiting for someone to come along and steal it. But I was far luckier with the 1D. Granted, I stalked it a lot longer before actually purchasing. But the amount of bad luck I had with the 1D too, I had an equal amount of good luck with the 1D. I ended up getting one that looks basically brand new, with fewer than 7,000 shutter actuations. It almost is brand new. Absolutely wild. And yes, it cost more than the 1D Mark II, but not that much more. I've seen them go for over $1,000 US. I didn't pay anywhere close to that, or even half of that. Don't know why I'm avoiding saying what I paid for it. $375 US after tax. An absolute bargain for such a collector's item. I mean, granted, I wish it weren't a collector's item, because I think 100 to 150 is closer to a fair price, and it was going for that pre-COVID. 2019 or so, I don't remember exactly, somewhere in there. That's when I first thought that I might like to own the 1D again. So I was looking regularly, and I witnessed the price shoot up very suddenly. So I thought I had missed my window. When I started looking at it, it was just considered old junk, but now it had entered its expensive antique phase. So I really could not have imagined at the time that I would be so stubborn about it as to stalk it for years, eventually buy one. But that's what I did. Along the way, buying a 1D Mark II and a 1DS Mark II as substitutes. I'm going to have to also examine whether or not I can justify owning the 1DS Mark II that I own. That's what I meant earlier by saying it's complicated. Do I really need two 1D series cameras? Probably not. I certainly don't need 3, but maybe I don't even need 2. The problem there is, while the 1D Mark II is marginally superior to the 1D, the 1DS Mark II is wildly superior to the 1D in all areas besides speed. That voice that kicks in when you're selling the superior camera in favor of the inferior camera can only take you so far. The 1D missed focus here. Both cameras have superb autofocus, but they both miss on occasion as well. Which reminds me, the 1D really doesn't know how to play well with third-party lenses. That's something that's pretty disappointing to me. And another point in favor of keeping the 1DS Mark II, because I really like my Sigma Art 35mm lens as a general all-purpose walk-around lens, but the 1D just refuses. It is just not possible with the 1D, unfortunately. Granted, I could probably sell it and get the Canon version of that lens. I don't really want to. I like the lens I have, and how often in life is that the case, that you're happy with what you have? It just sucks, though. Who knows, maybe I'll end up doing something crazy and keeping my 1DS Mark II and selling both the 1D Mark II and the 1D. I doubt it, but it makes a lot of sense. I only shot this one with the 1D Mark II because timing was paramount. I've also in my career and hobby owned a 1-in film camera. Same family of cameras. I regret that I don't currently own a 1-in. It's more affordable than the 1D though, so I probably could at some future date buy it again. Though if I did own it, I'd certainly want to use that same Sigma Art lens, and it would probably similarly result in horribly out of focus shots. I spent some time doing studio work with a 1D Mark II-in, which is essentially just a 1D Mark II with a bigger screen. Call me old-fashioned, but I like my old DSLRs with tiny, useless screens. Elias Photo, ELIAHSPHOTO, on Instagram loaned me this 1D Mark IV a while ago. That was extremely interesting, to experience a more modern, but not fully modern, take on the 1D. I liked it. Great camera. But it did not scratch my old camera itch. Just has a different vibe about it. Comes from a different era. It's a similar camera that somehow doesn't really feel similar. But it's good. A more practical choice than the 1D or the 1D Mark II. It's interesting to shoot the 1D, and then the 1D Mark IV, the very first camera in the line and the very last camera in the line. But go look at ELIAHSPHOTO on Instagram to see some really, really great photography. That was not a commercial, but it sure sounded like one. I just really appreciate the loan, the chance to shoot on that camera for a while. And it, of course, has absolutely no issue with third-party lenses. You know, though, I didn't really test my Sigma Art lens on the 1D Mark II. I should have. That was an oversight. But, anecdotally, at least, I know the 1D is notoriously picky, so very likely the 1D too would have an easier time with that lens. But given all its limitations, why do I love the 1D so much? You know, it's the camera I owned when I met my wife. The very first photo I took of her was on this camera. I photographed my dad, my mom who is dead, my cat Molly who died many, many years ago, my wife's mom and dad. Her mom has been paralyzed for 2 years and in the hospital for the last 3 weeks straight. It's not looking too good. But the best photos, I mean, this sounds like I'm complimenting myself. The best photos, arguably, of her taken of her in her whole life were with this camera. My first solo wedding, when I was contracted to a studio, and sometime later, my first wedding that I booked on my own, Sand Studio, I shot with this camera. The first portrait session I booked on my own, this camera. There are several other models out there that I remember fondly, but in terms of pro DSLRs, this is the one that just feels like an extension of my arm. It's written into my firmware, it's part of my operating system now. I think of fun DSLRs, I think of this camera. I think of incredible, early pro DSLRs way ahead of their time. I think of this camera. I consider the biggest leaps in technology that I have experienced in my lifetime. Digital photography is not at the very, very top of the list, but it's pretty high on the list. And this is the camera that most embodies that transition to me. Granted, maybe that's just because of my own personal experience. Maybe it's arbitrary. Maybe if it had been some other camera model, I'd have all these same feelings for that camera instead. Maybe, but I doubt it. This was not the first pro camera I ever used. Rather, it's the one that blew me away the most, such that after using it, I knew I had to own it. So I worked my ass off, and I saved in order to get it. But I will say I did receive some really good advice at the time, because I was considering another camera that had a higher resolution sensor. But I'm really glad I chose this one. Really, really glad. There are cosmetic differences between the 1D and the 1D Mark II, but they're so minor. But yes, if you set them in front of you and stare, you'll begin spotting them one after another. Again, I forgot that there are cosmetic differences. That's another thing that I knew once and then forgot. I'm pretty sure I've said in the past that they are cosmetically identical, minus one difference on the front of the cameras, but they're not. See the white patch at the top of the 1D? That's the one difference I remembered, but there are many. And I now remember that I also realized that at the time. But they're just minor. Different lines, different thicknesses, or an extra button here, a different colored label there. They're incredibly, incredibly, incredibly similar. The 1D has one memory card slot, while the 1D2 has two. It was Canon's very first DSLR with 2 card slots, but this early implementation has some limitations. But the basics are there. You can record the same image to 2 cards simultaneously, thus having an instant backup. I never once lost a single image to memory card failure. I've certainly lost or screwed up images before, but not in that particular way. So I've never actually had to use a memory card backup like that. But I know many who have, and it's nice knowing that it's there. I don't shoot to 2 cards personally when I'm out shooting my Mark II. I would if it were a paid gig. I mean, there are 2 slots there, why not use them, just in case? The 1D2's screen is significantly more viewable, exactly the same size, but the difference, while it may or may not be noticeable on video, is extremely apparent in person. I distinctly remember that being the first thing I noticed when I first saw a 1D Mark II. I thought, holy shit, look at that screen, so much better. And it is, it really is. Though, a bad screen is part of the fun for me now. I get a kick out of making do with a terrible screen. I understand that that doesn't make any sense, but it's all part of the fun to me, and the challenge. This is the one image quality related difference I wanted to highlight. Look how the sun is rendered in these. On the 1D, the CCD's response to light oversaturation is pretty harsh. You get this vertical smear from excess charge bleeding into neighboring photo sites. Same thing, of course, happens on the 1D Mark II or any camera, but its CMOS sensor handles it a lot better. Still blown out, but tasteful. Here, side-by-side comparison of the two screens. You can kinda tell, but it's more apparent in real life. I was planning to capture the menu with my Ninja 5, my Ninja V, but the 1D has no video out port, so it's impossible to capture the menu that way, which I did not remember. The 1D2 does have a video out port, which I appreciate. Both cameras, in addition to the regular menu items, and in addition to the custom functions, further have a list of personal functions that can only be set by connecting to a computer. So, connectivity, compatibility becomes a really important consideration, which is a bit of a problem. If you want to change personal functions on the Canon 1D or the 1D Mark II, you'll have to go through FireWire. The original 1D doesn't even have a USB port. And while the Mark II, yes, added one, it has both, the USB port cannot be used for anything beyond image transfers or direct printing. At least that's what I've turned up in my research. I did not try it because I'm not looking to change any personal functions on the Mark II, but this could be a problem with the Mark I. Really dumb decision to adjust JPEG quality on the Mark I. You have to do this in personal functions. That is, you have to connect it to a computer. And of course, naturally, highest quality is not the default setting. Why would it be? It's crazy talk. Fortunately, the Mark II moved that into the menu itself, so you can easily change JPEG quality on the Mark II without connecting to a computer. That's the biggest annoyance of the original Mark I to me. Even at the time, I didn't own a computer with a FireWire port. I had to use a computer at work to change those settings, which, okay, wasn't a huge deal. Work was a photography studio, after all. But still, I couldn't change my settings on my own camera at home, and that sucked. Fortunately for me, the 1D that I have today is already set to highest quality JPEG. That is, the least aggressive compression available will be applied. And I don't imagine I will ever have any desire to change that. So, my sincere thanks to the original owner, whoever you are. And it's impossible to adapt FireWire to USB, so unless you have a very old computer lying around with a FireWire port, getting a modern computer to communicate with either of these cameras is going to require, well, first, that you own a computer with a Thunderbolt port any generation. If you have a Mac, you probably do. And daisy chaining multiple adapters together. The adapters themselves can be tough to find. You'll probably be buying them used, and this will all just get harder to do, and adapters will get harder to find as time goes on. There should be no settings ever on any device that require you to connect to a computer. That's just a terrible idea. The more I do this, make videos about old cameras I like, I feel an increased sense of responsibility to frame it as realistically as possible. I have nostalgia contact lenses permanently affixed to my eyeballs, because what I'm not trying to do ever is to try to sell you on the idea of buying some particular camera. I just want to show it because I like it personally. In this case, I like both cameras very, very much. The reality is whatever camera you have, can afford, is the right camera and the one you should be using. It really doesn't matter. I mean, really, really, really does not matter. All cameras do the same job. There's the artists, and there's the tools. And it might seem like I get super hung up on the tools, but I really don't. I make a video about a topic, I focus on that topic, so it ends up becoming this little hyper-realistic pocket of, I don't know, exaggerated fixation. But when the video comes to an end, I pick up a different camera because change is nice, keeps it all interesting. But there's no reason to take it too seriously. The important thing is what you do with these tools, not the tools themselves. And it's a great time to be into photography, the best time ever, because even if you can only scrape together a small amount of money, you have an ocean of choices, incredible flagship cameras from the past, which are now affordable. A few of these here at the end I only shot with the 1D. I think I was just getting really tired of switching back and forth. So I am going to sell my 1D Mark II, not for any of the reasons you would normally sell a camera. If someone is choosing between these two cameras and wanted my recommendation, easy choice, the Mark II is better and it's cheaper. But the Mark I is great, almost as good, and it's more significant to me personally. So that's my choice. I'm keeping the 1D, probably forever, but eventually I'll do a video comparing it to the 1DS Mark II, and we'll see what happens.